Greetings, Remnant and online friends. Welcome to the Midweek Refuel, where we seek out the ancient wisdom simply because modern wisdom has the emotional stability of a modern toddler without an iPad. Modern wisdom tells you to protect your peace, and Chesterton just walks in and says, swear loyalty to reality. Modern wisdom says, if it hurts, detach. Chesterton says, if it hurts, you just found something worth fighting for. And that's where the problem starts. Because Christianity doesn't just offend the culture. It offends everyone, even you. Last week, we talked about the oath. This week, we find out who meant it. Because it turns out, not everyone who says they love life actually loves life. Some people say they love life, but the moment life hurts, they're done. Some people say they value existence, but they reserve the right to walk away from it. And Chesterton steps in and says that's not love, folks, that's preference. And preference disappears the moment it costs you something. So today is not about the idea of the oath, it's about the line that the oath draws in the sand between the one who would die for life and the one who would erase life to escape it. And Chesterton says those two are not similar, not in any way. They are enemies towards each other. So if last week was about swearing allegiance, this week is about whether you actually stand by it. Chesterton says something that will offend modern people, and it'll offend them immediately. He says, not all death is the same, and not all love of life is real. We have been trained to think, well, they both chose to die. Chesterton says, no. One chose life so much he lost his own. The other rejected life so completely he erased it. That is not similarity. That is opposition. Modern thinking flattens everything. It says martyr equals suicide. Sacrifice equals self-destruction. Courage equals coping. Because modernity has lost categories. Everything becomes, well, they were hurting. Chesterton says, no, there's something deeper going on here. There's a difference between giving your life and throwing it away. Last week, we said you must swear loyalty to life, but we didn't define it deeply enough. Because the oath is not, I enjoy life. The oath is not, I prefer life. The oath is not, I'll keep life as long as it works the way I want it to. The oath is this, even when life wounds me, I will not betray it. That's the difference. And here's where Chesterton stops. Not because he is confused, but because he realizes something astounding, something that stops him dead in his tracks. This isn't just about death. This is the first clue that Christianity does not behave like anything else. Because every other system tries to balance things. Christianity does not balance things. It goes all the way in both directions. Fiercely for one thing, fiercely against the other. And suddenly, Chesterton realizes in the core of his being, that might not be inconsistency. That might be the center. We live in a world that has started to celebrate victimhood, not care for victims. Christianity commands that we do that, not protect the wounded. Christianity demands that. But celebrate the identity of being broken. As if it is the final truth about you. Think about that. And that, Chesterton would say, is a betrayal of life. Because Christ is not a victim. He's definitely crucified, but not defeated. He's killed, not conquered. He doesn't come to create victims. He comes to create victors. Not the world's version of victors, not power, not dominance, but men and women who can say honestly, you can wound me, but you cannot make me betray what is real. That's the difference. One collapses under suffering. The other transforms suffering into witness. And from that, he builds a people who don't organize themselves around their wounds, but around the truth. But we didn't lose that all at once, did we? We traded it. We traded it slowly. We traded it reasonably. We traded it in ways that felt compassionate at the time. We made small concessions. We told ourselves we were helping people, making things accessible, lowering barriers, and each step felt harmless until one day we woke up and realized the whole structure had been inverted. We said we didn't want anyone to feel like they lost, so we handed out participation trophies, and what we really taught was that victory does not matter. We said we wanted worship to reach more people, so we divided our sanctuaries into traditional and contemporary, whatever that means. And what we really taught was that worship is about my preferences instead of about His truth. We said we didn't want to shame anyone, so we stopped calling sin what it is. And what we really taught was that nothing is serious enough to confront. We said we wanted to meet people where they are. And that's right. But then we stayed there with them. And what we really taught was that transformation is optional. We said we wanted to care for the wounded. And we should. But instead of healing wounds, we built identities around wounds. And what we really taught them was that your pain is who you are now. We said we wanted to remove pressure, so we removed responsibility. And what we really taught was that you don't owe anything to anyone. Peace by Jinga Peace. We didn't just soften the faith. We reversed it. Because Christianity never said you are defined by your wounds. It said you are wounded, but not finished. It never said you are fine as you are. It said you are called to become something. It never coddled. It commanded. It healed, it restored, it demanded loyalty to something beyond yourself. And when we lost that, we didn't become more compassionate. We became more confused about what a human being even is. Because the oath was never, I will be comfortable in life. The oath was, I will be faithful to life. And the moment we replaced faithfulness with comfort, we stopped producing people who could stand. And I'll be honest, I'm a little tired of living in a world where people will stand up boldly for what destroys life and whisper apologetically about what preserves life. I'm tired of watching a culture find its courage when it's defending what is broken, but lose its voice all of a sudden when it's called to defend what is good, what is true, what is life-giving. Because Christianity did not enter the world to sit quietly beside destruction and try to understand it. It came to call a people out of it. It came to say, you are not made for this. You are not meant to collapse into your wounds, not meant to sanctify what is killing you, not meant to dress up death and call it compassion. It came with a voice that could cut through the confusion and say, go and sin no more. Not because it hated the sinner, but because it loved the person too much to leave them where sin was destroying them and their lives. And now too often we hesitate, we soften, we reframe, we explain, we rename. We act as if clarity is cruelty and conviction is dangerous. We act as if the most loving thing we can do is to stay silent while people drift further into what will harm them and their families. And in doing that, we have not become more Christ-like, we have become less Christ-like, because Christ never confused love with approval. He never mistook compassion for agreement. He never organized people around their brokenness. He called them out of their brokenness into something whole and meaningful, something restored, something alive. He didn't come to affirm the direction people were going. He came to turn them around from it. And if we are going to take the oath seriously, if we're going to say that we are faithful to life, then we cannot stand quietly while life is diminished, distorted, destroyed. Not with anger for its own sake, not with pride, but with the same fierce love that refuses to lie about what is real. Because the goal was never to make people comfortable in their condition. The goal was always to call them into life. So let us turn to the man himself. And this is the moment that Chesterton stops. Not because he's confused, not because he realizes something. Up to this point, it looked like a moral argument, martyr versus suicide, life versus rejection. But suddenly he sees it bigger, much bigger than that, because Christianity isn't choosing one side of the tension. It isn't saying, be moderate. It is not saying, find the middle. It is doing something far stranger. It is fiercely for one thing and fiercely against the other. At the same time, it doesn't blur the line, it sharpens it. And that's what makes him stop. Because every other system he has seen tries to resolve tension by softening it. But Christianity resolves tension by intensifying both sides until they reveal the truth. And in that moment, Chesterton realizes that what looked like contradiction might actually be precision. What looked like imbalance might actually be the exact center. And that's the thought that makes him stand still in his tracks. And while you are opening your book, take just a moment to help keep these messages of life afloat out there. Hit the like and the subscribe buttons. It's simple, but it matters. It's a way that you can minister to people that you will never meet. And that is truly a remarkable thing. I'm reaching more people through these videos than I ever had the opportunity to before, and that's not because of me, it's because of this. Because what we're doing here is work. We are in the laundering business. We take the filth of this world, its confusion, its lies, its brokenness, and we run it through the fires of heaven and return to the people something clean, something whole, something sacred back into the world. And that matters. So let's get to work. This was the first of the long train of enigmas with which Christianity entered the discussion. And there went with it a peculiarity of which I shall have to speak more markedly, as a note of all Christian notions, but which distinctly began in this one. The Christian attitude to the martyr and the suicide was not what is so often affirmed in modern morals. It was not a matter of degree. It was not that a line must be drawn somewhere and that the self-slayer in exaltation fell within the line, the self-slayer in sadness just beyond it. The Christian feeling, evidently, was not merely that the suicide was carrying martyrdom too far. The Christian feeling was furiously for one and furiously against the other. These two things that looked so much alike were at opposite ends of heaven and hell. One man flung away his life. He was so good that his dry bones could heal cities in pestilence. Another man flung away life. He was so bad that his bones would pollute his brethren's. I am not saying this fierceness was right, but why was it so fierce? Here it was that I first found that my wandering feet were in some beaten track. Christianity had also felt this opposition of the martyr to the suicide. Had it perhaps felt it for the same reason? Had Christianity felt what I felt, but could not and cannot express? This need for a first loyalty to things and then for a ruinous reform of things. Then I remembered that it was actually the charge against Christianity that it combined these two things, which I was wildly trying to combine. Christianity was accused at one and the same time of being too optimistic about the universe and of being too pessimistic about the world. The coincidence made me suddenly stand still. Men, this is very simple. You are already living under an oath. You didn't choose not to choose. You chose, just not out loud. Every habit is an oath. Every compromise is an oath. Every quiet surrender is an oath. Every time that you knew what was right but did something else, you pledged yourself, not to Christ, to something smaller, to comfort, to appetite, to approval, to fear, to ease, to whatever lets you get through the moment without cost. That's why this hits so very hard, because the difference isn't between strong men and weak men. It's between men who have sworn themselves to something worth dying for and men who have sworn themselves to something not even worth living for. That's the line. Not emotion, not pain, not circumstances. Allegiance. And Christ does not step into your life as an option. He steps into your life as a king. And a king does not negotiate terms with a divided man. So let's stop pretending. If Christ is king, then what you are bowing to right now matters, because you are bowing to something. You don't drift, you kneel. So here it is. If Christ is king, then everything else that rules you is lesser. If Christ is king, then everything that demands your obedience but cannot save you is a tyrant. If Christ is king, then the question is no longer what you feel. The question is, who has your loyalty when it costs you something? Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, not when it feels good. When it costs you something. Because that's where your real oath lives. So stop hiding behind the confusion. Stop calling compromise wisdom. Stop calling weakness compassion. Stop calling silence maturity. You know. You already know. And if you know, then there's only one thing left. Renounce what you've been bowing to. Name it, and then put it to death. And swear yourself to Jesus Christ the King. Not casually, not emotionally, not temporarily, but completely. Because he is not a teacher that you visit. He is a king you belong to. And he does not produce victims. He produces men who can stand, men who can suffer without collapsing, men who can be wounded without betraying what is true, men who can lose everything and still not lose themselves. That's the oath. Not comfort, not survival, not preference. Allegiance. And once a man sees that, there's no going back to pretending he didn't. Christ is king. Hail to the King.